What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. But for all the rest of you that have been here since the beginning, how did you feel about that last Brandon part? It was really something special, wasn't it? Well, now we're back into the main timeline, and today is going to be interesting. But before we get into today's part, I need you to take a look at this analytical stat bar right here. If you notice, 62.5% of you that watch my content are not subscribed. So, if you could do me a favor and just hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you'll never miss another upload from the channel. But with all of that being said, we got a lot to cover today. So, let's get into part 11 of What If Ash Won the Sinnoh League. I hope you enjoy. Man, that Battle Frontier arc, I don't know how I'm going to top that, but it's going to be a fun ride to try. Anyway, we're getting back into What If Ash Won the Sinnoh League. Now, we're in an interesting position. Technically, we are past the point of just my imagination running wild and back into the timeline of the actual anime. Up until this point, I was using video footage to display on screen for anything of this variety. But if you guys remember, on one of my previous videos, I said that I wouldn't be doing that to avoid the show pro situation. So from here on out, I'm going to be using the stills from the anime and doing the animated battles like you've been seeing. So for the first thing, we are getting to Ash and his friends as they are on the road. It's been about a week since the battle with Brandon, and Ash is more motivated now than ever. This can be seen with the training he's been putting in while on the road, mostly to polish the strong and agile styles of Pikachu and Spiritomb. It's at this point they're about a day outside of Sunnyshore City. Ash and Brock are in full training mode. We see a tag battle with Pikachu and Spiritomb versus Sudowoodo and Kuroguk. Ash is in top form, quickly ending the battle with his two style battlers. Don comments that Ash has gotten much better than the last time he battled Paul, then asks if he's thought about teaching his other Pokemon the style techniques. Ash says he would love to, but he doesn't really know how. Everything he has experienced to this point has just been best guess. At this point, he only understands how to use them, but to teach them is another thing. Brock seconds this by stating that Ash may not have the time. The league is 2 weeks away. That type of training, he would need much more time than he has. Good point, Don says. I guess I didn't think it through, but still, they would be nice to have. Ash then says he's actually glad that his Pokemon don't know it, as that may lead to him relying on them too much. Good thought, Ash. You really have come into your own with your time that you've been in Sinnoh. Yeah, he's actually thinking, which is surprising, Don says, as they all laugh and get back to training. This leads us back into the first episode, Electric Shock Battle, the final badge. Now, due to us being so far into the story and all we've changed, there are some things we're going to have to run through. The last time Wagner saw Ash, he only had Monferno, and in the original, Ash had Torterra at this point, but both things have changed, so that's going to change the flow of our battle immensely. But there's something else we have to establish first. The last battle with Brandon, it was a full 6-on-6. While that would be cool for Ash's final gym badge, I don't think it's actually feasible. This being a gym battle, it's up to the gym leader's terms. Also, Ash was the one who requested the 6-on-6 with Brandon due to his involvement with Paul, but as Paul never battled this gym, I don't think that Ash would be motivated to request such an intense battle. At this point, if he beats Wagner, then it's more than Paul did, so Ash would be satisfied with that. So with that being said, let's move on to the Sunnyshore Gym. This is a big deal. Ash is here to battle for his 8th badge. He will be the first one to battle Wagner in over 2 years, so this is a grand event. So grand that not only are Ash's friends in attendance, but the Elite Four members, not just Flint. They are all here after hearing about his battle with Brandon. They know that this kid is a contender for the championship, but that's not all. The whole city is here. The fact that their gym leader is going to have a battle, which some in the audience have never seen before, is too good to pass up. Ash and Wagner meet in the middle of the battlefield. Ash, you caused this, as the leader points to the crowd. What do you mean, the young trainer asks. You reignited my passion for battling, in turn making everyone curious about the trainer that could do so. Well, I'm glad I could be of help, Ash says nervously. Ash, are you ready for our battle? You know it. I thought of nothing else over the last 2 months. Well then, this will be a 3-on-3. The battle will be over when all of one side's Pokemon are unable to battle. Ash nods as the two take their respective sides of the field, where he has thoughts to himself about how weird it feels to have a battle that doesn't have any strange conditions like the Battle Frontier. But that's no matter. This is what's happening now. Everything he's done over the last 2 months has led to this point. Looking at Pikachu, we will not lose, he thinks, as the ref calls for the start of the battle. Wagner starts the battle with the Pokemon Ash has never seen before. He calls for Rotom. The plasma spark takes to the field in an eerily spectral burst of clouds that are shrouded in electricity. Ash, wondering what it is, uses his Pokédex, and once he finds out about the ghost typing, he knows who he's going with. Spiritomb, I choose you, the boy declares, as his ghost takes the field. So Ash, a ghost type. Well, things are going to get spooky. You can take the first move. Well, let's not disappoint. Spiritomb, Shadow Sneak. Spiritomb cackles as it fades into nothing, only re-emerging to strike Rotom. While on the surface, this may seem like Ash has the advantage and Rotom is nearly knocked out due to the intensity of their move. This is what Wagner wanted. That way, he can guarantee his move hit. Will-O-Wisp. Suddenly, fire envelops Spiritomb, causing Ash to call for it to come back to his side of the field. Well, Ash, that was a good opening. Almost took the first battle, but now you're fighting time. Ash says nothing, just looking on. Knowing he may need Spiritomb for later, he decides to recall it, saving it from burn for right now. Thinking he will avoid any more burns, Ash chooses to send an Infernape. As his starter takes to the field, Flint reacts, thinking about the battle he had with it. If this thing can rival his Infernape as a Monferno, then things could get dangerous if his Blaze activates again. The other Elite Four members watch Flint's reaction, knowing that things have shifted by his response, causing their interest in this match to raise even more. Back on the field, Wagner tells Ash he's smart for making that switch, but it won't save him, as he orders Rotom to use Discharge. Ash orders Dig to counter, knowing that when it hits, this will be the end of the battle. But as Infernape surfaces, it comes into contact with Rotom, only for the attack to phase right through it, catching both it and Ash off guard, allowing an opening for Wagner as he calls for a Pain Split, causing damage to Infernape and healing some of the health of Rotom. Thanks, Ash, Wagner says. Looking confused, Ash asks what he means. Well, if you wouldn't have swapped out your Pokemon, then that combination wouldn't have been possible, and I would have lost Rotom. But in your attempt to avoid the burn, you opened yourself for my Pokemon to counter. But that doesn't explain why Dig didn't make contact, Ash responds. Oh, that's simple. Rotom's ability is Levitate, so ground moves won't affect it. Well, that's great, Ash thinks. Barely 2 minutes into the battle, and already 2 of my Pokemon have taken damage. Well, Ash, shall we continue? Ash tells Infernape to be on guard. It nods, waiting for the next altercation. Wagner then orders a barrage of Shadow Balls in Infernape's direction. Ash tells it to use Counter Shield. This ends up keeping all the balls at bay, expanding farther and farther, until Rotom can't evade any longer. Ash tells Infernape to turn on the pressure. The flames surge as the field becomes engulfed, blocking the view of everyone in attendance. Once the flames finally subside, it's clear that was enough to give Ash the victory as Rotom lay in defeat. Wagner recalls his Pokemon, telling Ash that was impressive. It seems Infernape learned a new move. Ash didn't realize this, taking out his Pokédex to learn that Wagner was right. Infernape's Flame Wheel has evolved into the much more devastating Flare Blitz, but it comes at a cost. With the Pain Split and the use of Flare Blitz, Infernape has taken enough damage, causing it to breathe heavily. Ash sees this and realizes the side effect that the Pokédex was talking about. Knowing he needs to conserve Infernape, Ash recalls it. Wagner tells Ash he may be down a Pokemon, but from where he's sitting, things are looking more in the gym leader's favor. Ash can't argue this. A burn and a fatigue has stricken 2 of his Pokemon, while Wagner still has 2 healthy ones. But the battle must go on, as Wagner sends in his second choice, Luxray. Ash chooses to lead with his 3rd Pokemon in hopes of overpowering Luxray. Abomasnow, I choose you! As the snowman emerges, its snow warning takes effect. This envelops the field in a thick fog as hail begins to fall, dropping the visibility to almost nothing. Telling Wagner that things are just getting started, Ash orders an Icy Wind. The frigid air picks up as it gusts into Luxray, pushing it back as the ice begins to form at its feet. To counter this, Wagner orders a double team, thinking this will help Luxray move without the danger of being hit. Wagner then decides to go on the offensive, ordering Luxray to use its ability to see through walls. This helps the feline lock onto its prey as it charges an Iron Tail. Ash tells Abomasnow to be ready. Then as they feel the wind change, Ash thinks that they have the position of Luxray, telling Abomasnow to use Rock Climb. As the mountain begins to jut up from the ground, Abomasnow charges towards its peak, only to find itself alone at the summit. Confused, it looks around, as it is now out of sight of Ash and Wagner, but not Luxray. It sees the Tree Yeti through the unbearable weather and stealthily sneaks around the crescent of the peak to find its opening that it needed. Without warning, an Iron Tail is thrusted into the gut of Abomasnow, but Ash yells, "Grab it now!" The damage that was executed is great, but not enough to end Abomasnow. It grabs the tail of Luxray. Then, at the command of its trainer, it dives off the mountain towards the gym floor, slamming Luxray with the wood hammer, as the impact is enough to clear the effects of snow warning. After all is said and done, Luxray is down, while Abomasnow takes a knee from the impact it took. The win is given to Ash, leaving Wagner with just 1 Pokemon left to Ash's 3. However, the gym leader seems unfazed. A little smirk adorns his face. Ash, this is exactly what I was hoping for. A battle that challenges me and my Pokemon. Someone who can push me to the edge. Thank you. The spark you've ignited is one that will surge as the battle climaxes. Gripping the final choice of this run, Wagner declares, "Electivire, go!" Electricity surges as Wagner's ace takes to the field. Ash chooses to keep in Abomasnow for the time being. With the ref calling for the start, Ash makes the first move, calling for an Icy Wind. However, neither Wagner or his Mon flinch. A simple command is given. Cross chop! Suddenly, Electivire barrels across the battlefield, using its forearms to block the icy wind. As they grow brighter, Electivire connects, driving Abomasnow into the floor of the stadium with all of its weight behind it. This one-shots Abomasnow, almost saying, here's payback for what you did to Luxray. The crowd erupts with excitement, while Flint and the rest of the Elite Four look on, silently watching. Ash recalls his Pokemon, complimenting Wagner on the speed of his Pokemon. He let his guard down, and it cost the team, but that's okay. As he sends back in Spiritomb, the Spectre takes to the field, establishing itself as the alpha it is. However, Electivire doesn't even flinch, as the ref calls for the start of this battle. Wasting no time, Wagner takes on the first move, calling for an Ice Punch. Knowing Spiritomb won't be able to win with speed, Ash chooses to be more defensive, calling for a Protect. This stays off the damage from Electivire, but the burn is still a concern. Ash then calls for a strong Style Shadow Sneak. Spiritomb fades into the shadows once more, putting all it has as it charges, cracking Electivire from out of nowhere. The Oni shrieks in pain, as Electivire wonders where that power came from, but he doesn't dwell on it for long, as Sinnoh's strongest gym leader is quick to notice that Spiritomb is unable to move. Choosing to capitalize, Wagner calls for a Thunder. It strikes down on Spiritomb. Ash calls for a Protect, but the response from the Pokemon is slow, as it is lit up from the electricity. Once the attack subsides, Ash calls to Spiritomb. Though it has taken a bit of damage and the burn is stacking up, Spiritomb is still able to battle. For how long is the question. Impressed by the endurance of this Pokemon, Wagner knows that they need to end it with the next move. Without hesitation, he calls for another Ice Punch. Ash, knowing that this is their final chance, calls for a Dark Pulse. A burst of energy erupts from it. Wagner tells Electivire to use the Ice Punch to push through and slow the damage. As the moves clash, the two trainers look on, knowing that this will be the end of the battle. Unfortunately, the burn is weakening Spiritomb, forcing it to let up on the attack. This allows the Ice Punch to connect, dropping it, bringing Ash's Pokemon count to 1 left. The crowd is on a knife's edge. This is the match they've longed for over the years of Wagner's exile, but they haven't seen anything yet. As Infernape hits the field, the crowd can feel the intensity between these two behemoths. This is the final stretch. Ash, let's give it all we can. Ash nods, wasting no time, telling Infernape to use Flamethrower. Wagner counters with an Ice Punch. Though the move is at a disadvantage, it nullifies the attack. The crowd erupts with excitement. Ash and Wagner can feel the electricity in the air. They say nothing, only giving commands. Calling for Thunder, Electivire charges. Ash counters by calling for a Dig. Infernape burrows deep into the floor as the thunder strikes the ground. Ash has a sense of confidence, but it's shattered once Wagner gives his next command. Earthquake! The ground shakes as Ash hears his fire starter shriek in pain. Infernape surfaces as quickly as it can to minimize the damage, but it's met with a cross chop that has the full weight of Electivire cratering it into the gym floor. Ash looks on as Electivire steps back, the ref counting down to eliminate Ash and Infernape. The numbers fade away as the memories of their recent battles zoom through Ash's mind. There's no way that was enough to end it. Infernape, stand up, Ash yells. As the ref reaches to the count of 3, a reddish-orange glow begins to seep from the hole in the floor. Ash smiles as Wagner and Flint grow concerned. The last time they saw this power, neither of them can control it. Infernape begins to walk out of its grave, burning with intense flames. Well, Wagner, you want our best? Then here it is. Infernape, close combat! Before Wagner can even respond, Infernape fades from sight. The next thing he knows, Infernape gut checks Electivire, followed by a flurry of punches and kicks as the flames rage and the heat intensifies. Infernape then steps back as Electivire doubles over as the count begins for it. Wagner is in shock. This boy, his Pokemon, I don't know what it is, but they are special. They won't get our badge without a fight, however. Electivire, stand up. The Oni shakes off the dust. The two ready themselves. This will be their final encounter. Ash, I'm glad you were the one to pull me back from the brink. This battle has been the one I've been longing for. Ash replies, all we've done is battle. It's nothing special, but we are here to win. Right, Infernape? Electivire, use Cross Chop. Infernape, use Flare Blitz. The two clash in a pillar of fire and electricity, blinding everyone in the surrounding area. As the vision for everyone returns, a victor is clear. Infernape stands over its competition, establishing its dominance. The ref calls the match as the crowd erupts. They don't care that Wagner lost. The show that they got was the most incredible thing. Wagner returns his partner as Ash approaches. Thank you for the battle. The fire you started in me has never burned brighter. He then presents him with the prize that Ash has spent the last 2 months thinking about, the Beacon Badge. The elites in attendance look on as Lucian comments to Flint, you're right, we may end up battling this kid in the near future. With that, we can now move on from the Sunnyshore gym. This leads us into the next episode for this season, an old family blend. This is where we see Ash start to call on his old Pokemon, but the big thing here happens because of Team Rocket. As they attack Ash's Pokemon, his Cyndaquil evolves into a Quilava, which if you recall, in the battle with Argenta, I had Ash's Totodile evolve. The reason in the original anime that Ash's Cyndaquil evolved here was because at the time in the real world, they had just released Heart Gold and Soul Silver. This was only to promote the games. It always bothered me that they never evened out his Johto starters with mid-stage evolutions for all three. So that's why I evolved Croconaw. But with that, we can finally head into the home stretch of this project and the thing you've all been waiting for, the start of the Sinnoh League, with League Unleashed. This episode, we see Ash start his first round of battles, and we see him taking on one of the old rivals of Dawn and him, Nando. This battle actually doesn't have to change. Ash still gets the win with Heracross and its Sleep Talk strategy, ending Nando's dreams of victory in the Sinnoh League. But one thing of importance happens here. Barry, wandering through the hallways, comes across a trainer that he knows all too well. The trainer that his father faced and handed one of the most one-sided defeats Barry had ever seen. This stops Barry dead in his tracks as the feeling of cold passes through his spine. A few seconds later, Ash walks through the corridor, calling to Barry. This shocks Barry out of his paralysis. Barry, are you okay? Ash, he's here. Who's here, Barry? The trainer I told you about. The one that beat my dad. The trainer that took out his whole team with just one Pokemon. Really, Ash questions? Yeah, he's here in the league. That means we're all doomed. If my dad couldn't beat him, then no one could. Barry, calm down. No one is unbeatable. If you don't focus, you'll get yourself knocked out before you and me can have a chance to battle. Barry stops, then smiles at Ash. You're right. I have to be the one beating you. Smiling, the two boys stare at each other as we fade into the next episode. With everything that's been going on in the background, Paul has been winning his way through the preliminaries, securing himself in the top 8. Barry has also secured himself a spot in the top 8, while carefully avoiding the trainer of his nightmares. This leads us into the very next episode, working on a right move. It's here where we see Ash take on Conway, the barrier for him making his way into the top 8. In the beginning of this episode, we see Conway stalking Ash with his Infernape, Glalie, and Bastiodon instead of his long-lost Torterra. Here, we see Ash talking about the Pokemon he will use in the next battle with Conway, gesturing to the 3 that he has out with him. Conway takes this as an absolute truth and slinks off to plan his battle strategy with Ash. The next day, we see the two square off with everything on the line. Conway feels confident. The Pokemon Ash had with him, his whole strategy is built to counter them, and any other possible outcomes that he may think of. To say Conway is confident that he's the winner already is an understatement. Ash and him exchange no words, just readying their first choices as the ref calls for the start of the battle. In the stands, Barry, Paul, and the one who shall not be named watch on, as well as a certain champion that Ash and friends haven't seen in a long while, Cynthia. Back on the field, the first 2 combatants chosen are Shuckle for Conway, and for Ash, something Conway wasn't expecting, Knocked Out. This tilts Conway a little, but doesn't last long, as Ash calls for an Air Slash. Conway counters with a withdrawal. It glows, raising its defense. The Air Slash still connects, with Conway following up with a second and a third withdrawal. Ash is quick on the Air Slashes as well, with both trainers making little to no ground. Then Conway chooses to change things up a little bit by calling for a power trick. Shuckle glows slightly, while Conway explains what's about to happen. Ash, however, is unfazed, telling Noctowl to dive. Conway counters with a Gyro Ball, and Ash calls for a Hypnosis, but it misses, and Shuckle connects, appearing to one-shot Noctowl in the process. Luckily, Noctowl is able to stand back up, but this does have Ash a little concerned, so he chooses to recall it for now. But Ash has a plan, so he sends out his grass starter from the motherland, Bulbasaur. The tiny grass toad emerges from its ball, ready to battle. Conway isn't phased, choosing to leave in his stat-boosted Mon. The battle starts, and Conway calls for a Sludge Bomb. Ash just smiles. Bulbasaur is the perfect counter for this, with Ash calling for a Vine Whip to knock back the Sludge Bombs, one even hitting Shuckle in the process. Conway, now a little flustered, tells Shuckle to use Gyro Ball. Ash tells Bulbasaur to be on the move and start charging a Solar Beam. It does, but this process is slow, and Ash needs time. Unfortunately, the Gyro Ball just keeps coming, with each pass getting closer and closer to landing a hit. Then Ash has a brilliant idea. Bulbasaur, use Vine Whip, catch Shuckle, and hold it in the air. Bulbasaur snags the Shell Shock bug as it spins wildly in the air above its head. Then, with nothing holding it back, Ash commands it to release the Solar Beam that blasts Shuckle into the next generation. Conway recalls Shuckle, though he isn't worried about his loss. Conway tells Ash that was clever, but not to get too comfortable. His calculations still say he's going to win. Ash just smiles. His confidence, his calm exterior, it's obvious. Conway ignores this for now, sending in his next Pokemon, Licky Licky. Ash chooses to keep in Bulbasaur for now. The ref calls for the start of this battle, and Ash commands a Vine Whip. Conway counters with a Lick that pushes back the vines. Conway then calls for a Power Whip, in which Ash counters with a dig. As Bulbasaur tunnels, Ash feels safe, but Licky Liggy jabs its tongue into the ground, forcing Bulbasaur out. It's at this point Ash chooses to recall it, sending back in Noctowl. Conway tries another Power Whip, but Noctowl is just out of reach. This allows it to counter with an Air Slash, flooring Licky Licky in the process. It seems to have flinched as it's unresponsive to Conway's commands. This gives Ash the opening he needs to use an Extra Sentry, slamming the Tongue Titan into the ground and ending Conway's second Pokemon. Recalling it, Conway smiles. Two of Ash's Pokemon are known, and they have both battled. Without hesitation, Conway sends in his final Pokemon, Dusknoir. Ash thinks this is just a little odd. Conway can't be planning what he thinks he is. But as the ref calls for the start of the battle, Ash's suspicions are confirmed when Conway calls for a Trick Room. Ash doesn't even break eye contact with Conte, throwing him off a bit. Well, Conway, I expected better. What do you mean? My calculations have been foolproof. Well, this isn't anything I haven't experienced before. Trick Room allows the slower Pokemon to move faster, which could be a problem if you don't know about it. So in the end, this isn't as bad as it could be. We'll see about that, Ash, as Conway orders a Thunder Punch. Dusknoir speeds ahead of Noctowl, connecting with the jab, knocking out Ash's first Mon. Unfazed, Ash sends back in Bulbasaur. He tells it to be on guard. Calling for the start of this battle, Ash orders a Vine Whip, but again, Dusknoir outmaneuvers it to land a Shadow Punch, knocking Bulbasaur in the direction of the stadium wall. Ash tries to recall his Pokemon in an attempt to save it, but Conway wastes no time calling for a Mean Look that locks Bulbasaur into this battle till the end. Bulbasaur crashes into the wall with a thud, but it's too stubborn to be knocked out that easily. Pushing itself back to its feet, Bulbasaur staggers back to the field. It felt that last attack, and is now on borrowed time. Ash knows this as well, realizing that they need to set up the next battle. Ash tells Bulbasaur to charge a Solar Beam. Realizing that that move could end Dusknoir, Conway orders another Shadow Punch. Bulbasaur can't avoid it and takes it again, but it's able to hold on for just a bit longer as the Solar Beam reaches full power. Ash orders Bulbasaur to get in close, but Conway won't let this move land, ordering a Thunder Punch on the bulb of Ash's Pokemon. This traps the Solar Beam inside. Conway, thinking he's won, tells Dusknoir to use his other fist for a Shadow Punch, but Ash smiles. This is what he wanted, ordering a Vine Whip to wrap up the Thunder Punch, trapping Dusknoir. It's at this point the Solar Beam fades and the Shadow Punch lands, separating the two. With the last bit of Bulbasaur's strength, Ash orders one last move, Leech Seed. A small seed fires from the bulb on Bulbasaur's back as it connects with the wall once more, getting knocked out in the process. Conway, feeling a little bit more confident now that things are moving in his favor, smiles. Ash, you are the first on a long list of people I intend to beat in this tournament, so please, don't make it a hollow victory. I hope your next Pokemon is of some challenge. Well, Conway, I have to say this battle has been fun, but it's nowhere near as challenging as you think, as he readies his last ball. This next choice will gum up your plants. Muck, I choose you. The purple stench motter slimes from this Pokeball, taking its place on the battlefield, much to the shock of Conway and everyone else in attendance. Conway, appalled that Ash would think that this thing could actually win, finally breaks his silence with uncontrollable laughter. Ash says nothing, just waiting for his opponent to finish. The ref calling for the start of the battle breaks Conway's tirade as he calls for a Thunder Punch. Ash counters with the Minimize. The punch lands, but to little effect. Muck just moves fluidly with the force, but Conway doesn't seem to notice, though he does order another Thunder Punch, which Ash again counters with the Minimize. This time, the attack misses, giving Ash an opening as he calls for a Mud Bomb. This forces Dusknoir to shoot back, like there was an unforeseen effect the move had. Now far from the thought of an open victory, Conway is visibly flustered, calling for another Thunder Punch. Muck just oozes by, with it missing the Swamp Sledge altogether. Conway can't understand it. Trick Room makes Dusknoir faster, but it won't affect the ability to dodge, Ash remarks. Now mad, Conway tells Ash to tell him what he means. Well, Muck may be outsped by your Pokemon, but that doesn't mean that it can't dodge. Also, it appears that Dusknoir's accuracy is a little off. Looking his Pokemon over, Conway can't believe he hadn't noticed it before. But then, something else becomes apparent. The whole time, Leech Seed has been in effect. Dusknoir is breathing heavily. It doesn't have the endurance for another long drawn-out battle. While Muck looks like it was just sent out, Conway won't let Ash get this win. He tells Dusknoir to use a Shadow Punch in an effort to clinch a come-from-behind victory. But Ash has one final move to put this ghost down, telling Muck to counter with the Poison Jab. Muck has the power to push through the Shadow Punch, connecting with Dusknoir and ending the battle. The ref calls it. Ash has made his way into the top 8. Conway recalls his Mon, realizing the flaw in his approach, watching Ash celebrate with Muck on the battlefield. It is at this point he sees the screen above randomized for the top 8 pairings. Ash, Paul, and Barry loom on as their hearts pound in their chest. Then the results flash. Ash will face Barry in his top 8 match. Paul walks off seemingly dissatisfied with his matchup, while the other trainer that Barry has come to fear looks on at the two kids includes who he may face in the top 4. Later that night, Ash is in the lobby of the Pokemon Center, talking with Professor Oak. "Well, Ash, I heard Muck was the one that got you the win today." "He sure did, Professor. I'm glad I got the chance to use it." "Well, Ash, you're sure the Pokemon that you have are the ones you want? Tomorrow is your first full 6-on-6, and I hear that your opponent is the son of one of the Sinnoh Frontier Brains." Ash tries to answer, but from behind, Barry intrudes into the conversation, telling Oak that he is Ash's greatest rival. So if Ash wants those Pokemon, then they are the ones that will give him the greatest battle, even better than the one that he had with my dad. "Well, you must be Barry," Oak says. "I look forward to watching your battle tomorrow." Barry goes on to say more, but the call gets disconnected when Muck tackles Oak. "Well, Ash, I hope you bring your best tomorrow, because I don't want a hollow victory." Ash just smiles at Barry. "That's the only way I know how to battle," as we fade into the next day. Ash and Pikachu stand across from Barry. The two have said nothing since the previous night, but there are no more words, only the battle. With the ref calling for the start of the battle, the two ready their first Pokemon, releasing them simultaneously to reveal Heracross for Barry and Tauros for Ash. The two seemingly stare each other down, but to Ash, this Tauros seems a little off. Unfortunately, with Barry interrupting the call to the professor last night, he didn't have a chance to see if this was the one that he normally uses. The one that is usually sent to him is always ready for battle, while this one is more docile in nature. What we saw as a stare down was actually Tauros staring into space. Ash now has to pull out his dex to see which Tauros stands before him, but he doesn't have much time as Barry goes on the attack with the Brick Break. The Battle Beetle quickly skates across the battlefield, landing it on the head of the bull. This drops it with one strike as Barry looks on with a smile. "Ash may have beat my dad, but he won't beat me," he thinks to himself. "I've spent the last 2 months going through the most intense training I've ever been part of. My dad put us through the ringer, and our hard work is not going to be for nothing." But Barry's inner monologue is interrupted by the voice of Ash as he calls out for an attack. "Payback!" The bull is on the attack, slamming Heracross with a gut-wrenching thud. This sends Heracross sliding back to Barry's side of the field with a message attached. If he doesn't take this battle seriously, then Ash will sweep him. Luckily, Heracross has a resistance to that type of attack, but that doesn't mean that it didn't take some serious damage. Barry can see this, and his mind is favoring the side that the attack landed on. This prompts the first back and forth with the two. "Ash, I'm glad we get a chance to have this battle," Barry says. Smiling, Ash agrees. It's been a long time coming, but it won't be easy as he makes the call for a Giga Impact from his bull. Knowing he needs to counter, Barry calls for a Mega Horn. The two collide, but Heracross is on the receiving end, taking even more damage as it's sent flying back. Barry takes this free gift, recalling Heracross before it hits the stadium wall. Knowing he needs to get back in the driver's seat, Barry decides to go big, sending in his tank, Snorlax. The Giga Impact gave Barry a free switch, which he uses to its fullest, calling for a Body Slam, attempting to flatten Tauros. While it does take damage, what is more important is the side effect, paralysis. Now Ash is on the back foot, trying to stave off the attacks, but Tauros is taking every other Body Slam. Eventually, Ash decides to recall his Mon, but the question is, what could he send in? Most of the Pokemon he has with him are lacking in the raw power department. That's why he brought out Tauros. But with the mounting pressure from the ref, Ash finally decides on someone. "Pikachu, let's go." The mouse sparks as it enters the battle. The start of this match begins with Barry starting big. "Snorlax, use Earthquake." But Ash isn't going to let that just go, ordering Pikachu to use its tail to spring up into the air. This puts it above Snorlax, out of its reach. Barry thinks he's got this though, telling Snorlax to use Crunch on Pikachu when it comes down. This is where Ash reveals his trump card, Agile Style Iron Tail, while putting a spin on it. The two strike back to back on Snorlax's head. This causes it to become a little bit wobbly as Pikachu lands. Then a towering shadow appears from the back. Snorlax is falling in the direction of the mouse. "Pikachu, use Quick Attack," Ash calls. The mouse speeds away from the Lummox falling face first. But now what? Is the battle over? However, Barry has the answer as he calls for a move that could be a huge problem for Ash. Rest. Snorlax passes out with its face into the ground, snoring away without a care in the world. Ash knows that he needs to take advantage of this, ordering a strong-style Volt Tackle. The electric mouse bolts down the field to collide with the Mammoth Swine-sized target. While this move does move the health meter on Snorlax, it doesn't wake up. Ash chooses to be a little smart here, recalling Pikachu so the effects of the style could wear off, and it could recover from the recoil. Snorlax remains snoozing for the time being, but Ash now has to make a choice. He needs something that could contest this power. With the time on the rest running low, Ash decides to make an interesting move. "Croconaw, I choose you." Ash's Water Johto starter takes to the field, ready to dance away with the victory. It's at this point, Snorlax wakes up, ready for more. This match begins with Barry calling for a Body Slam. Croconaw is easily able to dodge this, spinning out of its way. This catches Snorlax off balance as it falls face first once more. This causes Croconaw to laugh in amusement. This, in turn, frustrates Barry and Snorlax as it rushes back to its feet with no hesitation. Barry calls for an Earthquake, but again, Croconaw just shifts its rhythm, matching the shaking on the ground, dancing like nothing's happening. Now, Snorlax and Barry are mad. Nothing they do can affect this disco dial. This is what Ash was after. Barry losing his cool by not being able to keep up with Crocodile's rhythm. Now he launches his attack. Use Hydro Pump. Snorlax is off center and the pressure of the move causes it to fall flat on its back. This was the opening Ash was hoping for, calling for an Ice Fang. Crocodile chomps down on Snorlax's arm. Out of pain, it begins to wave back and forth trying to break the bite of this thing, but the grip is firm. With really only one move left, a crunch is ordered from Barry. Snorlax bites down on Crocodile, sucking its whole arm into its mouth like a spaghetti noodle. Crocodile releases its grip out of pain. Barry thinks he's finally got this one, the first win of the match. But Ash has one thing he hasn't tried yet. Crocodile, use superpower. The blue reptile begins to glow with a savage energy. With its body swelling to a hulking size, one strike kick is dealt to Snorlax's head, bringing the behemoth to its knees as the battle finally ends. Finally, Ash thinks. Sure is a good thing that Barry doesn't know how to use rest like Brandon, or we may never have won. Barry recalls Snorlax, thanking it for the battle it fought. Though it lost, it took 3 of Ash's Pokemon to do so, which they all took damage. Ash then recalls Crocodile to save it for later. This leaves Barry to choose his next Pokemon. He needs to set the pace here. Something that can strike quick. I've got it, he thinks. Roserade, go! Ash remembers battling this thing before. He can tell it's grown since then. He has to be careful. Mulling over his options, he decides that he's used too many of his Pokemon, so he needs to stick with one of the ones he's already used. So, he sends back in Tauros. The bull emerges, visibly winded from the last battle. The paralysis is still very much a problem, but this does have an added side effect. Barry isn't sure of Ash's angle, so he's going to be a little cautious here. Ash wastes no time calling for payback. Barry, after watching Ash's battle from the other day before, responds with a move that he may be all too familiar with. Double Team. This isn't enough to stave off Tauros as it pushes through the paralysis to land the payback. Roserade slides back, but is still able to battle. Barry then tells it to go on the attack with the Poison Jab. Unfortunately, the paralysis takes hold and Tauros takes the attack, dropping the bull. Ash is starting to feel the pressure. The reason he chose Tauros is so he could avoid poison from Roserade, but that may be coming back to bite him now. Roserade is now back on the attack with the Giga Drain to recover some of its lost health. Ash has one more move he can use, hoping it'll work. He calls for a rest, but nothing. Paralysis taking hold again. Fortunately for Ash, Tauros is able to stand back up. Realizing this is about to be over, Ash makes one desperate play that could at least get some damage in. Giga Impact. This time, Tauros is able to charge in with full power, but Roserade is able to sidestep the move, landing a Poison Jab and dropping the bull for a final time. The battle is called, with Ash recalling Tauros, thanking it for its efforts, even though he never really battled with this one. Barry tells Ash that he's now in the driver's seat of this battle, and he will be the one to cross the finish line. Ash smiles, holding his next Pokeball. Barry, you've grown, but that doesn't mean you're the only one that has. Quilava, I choose you! Ash's newest evolution takes to the field, bursting with fire, ready to battle. This makes Barry a little on edge. He watched this thing battle Nando, and the power it has is worrisome, but Roserade still has a slight advantage with its increased invasion. The ref calls for the start of the match, and Barry calls for another double team, but Ash has a counter when he commands a Swift. The stars begin to flood the battlefield. Roserade dodging the best that it can at the order of Barry, but it is in vain, as eventually they find their target. The damage wasn't battle ending, but Roserade definitely felt it. Barry knows that he needs to go on the offensive, so he orders a Poison Jab. Ash has a counter for this though, calling for a Smokescreen. Quilava uses the gas cloud to hide from its opponent, forcing it to stop dead in its tracks. Using the cloud as cover, Ash tells Quilava to get into position. Barry is beginning to feel a bit uneasy, telling Roserade to charge a Poison Jab and to be ready. He knows that Quilava will eventually come close, but Ash is a move ahead, calling for an eruption. Suddenly, the battlefield is engulfed in flames. Roserade jumps around, evading the fire as it spreads, eventually finding itself at the center of the attack with Quilava. As the flames race closer, Barry tells it to fire the Poison Jab. The move connects with Quilava as the flames engulf the two of them. Once the attack dies, Quilava and Roserade are still standing. Then Quilava begins to stagger as it cries in pain. Wait, is it down, Ash thinks? Luckily, Quilava is able to still battle, holding itself up, but the jab had everything Roserade could put into it, so the damage was extensive. Over with Roserade, Barry calls to it, but there's no answer as the wilted plant falls in defeat. Barry sighs, thinking that they could have done more, but recalls them on, thanking it for its battle. Ash asks Quilava can continue. It nods, though obviously it's in pain as it responds. Trusting his fire type, Ash chooses to keep it in. Barry is now choosing to take out all the stops. Empoleon, go, he yells. Barry's taking no chances. The referee calls for the start of the match, and Ash calls for another Smokescreen to keep its distance. But Barry wastes no time, calling for a Drill Peck. The speed that it executes the attack is unbelievable. Empoleon outpaces the Smokescreen and lands a Drill Peck, sending Quilava into the stadium wall, ending the battle before it had even started. Ash is stunned. He thought it would last longer than that, but Quilava must have been more hurt than it was letting on. Ash recalls it, knowing full well he must be careful from this point on. Barry is trying to take the lead with power. Barry recalls Empoleon, as it has served the purpose he needed for now. Ash must choose his next Pokemon to start the battle, so he chooses to go with someone fresh. Glalie, I choose you! The ice head bursts from its ball, ready to battle. Barry smiles. This is the opening he was looking for. Rapidash, go! The fire stallion emerges from the ball at the call of its trainer. Well, this won't be easy, Ash thinks, but let's see how it goes. The battle starts, and Barry wastes no time calling for a fire blast. Ash chooses to play a little defensive here, telling Glalie to put up a light screen. The barrier shields it from a one-shot, but Glalie still takes damage. That should make this a little easier. Ash then calls for an Iron Head, but Barry won't let Ash get a break, calling for a bounce. Rapidash takes to the sky, avoiding the attack. Ash can't see it, with the sun in his eyes. This gives Barry the opening he needed as Rapidash comes down on top of Glalie with its full weight pushing it into the ground. Once the horse moves, Ash looks on. Luckily, Glalie isn't out, but Ash recalls his Mon, as it's clear it won't be able to win this battle. Knowing he needs someone fresh, he sends back in Croconaw. Barry is confident in choosing to leave in his Fire Mare. The ref calls for the start of this battle, and Ash leads with a slash. Barry wanted to use this to his advantage, calls for a Will-O-Wisp. Croconaw is able to land its attack, but at the cost of a burn. Barry then tries to amplify it with a .0 Fire Blast. The light screen is still up, however, and the damage is minimal, with the shield giving Ash a chance to call for a Hydro Pump. This is able to connect with Rapidash, pushing it back, giving Barry the distance he actually wanted at a slight cost. It's time, Barry thinks. Rapidash, Solar Beam. It begins to charge. Ash, knowing he can't let this move connect, tells Croconaw to use Slash, but it's unable to connect as Rapidash jumps around the battlefield. It comes to the point that the attack is being fully charged. Barry needs this to be close, or the attack may not end it with the light screen. Ash sees Rapidash coming down. In a last-ditch effort, he tells Croconaw to rush in and take the attack. The Solar Beam fires into the target. For a moment, neither trainer can see their Pokemon, but once the attack subsides, they are both still standing. This is what Ash wanted, immediately calling for a Hydro Pump. Croconaw puts everything it has into the cannon of water, sending Rapidash into the air. Once the attack loses its momentum, Rapidash crashes to the ground below, knocked out from the exchange. The ref begins to call the battle in Croconaw's favor, until it collapses from the stress of the battle and the burn, resulting in a double knockout. Both trainers recall their Mons, complimenting each other on their stubbornness of their partner. Barry knows he needs some power, so he decides to send back in Heracross. Ash is running low on things that he can contest this thing with, so he chooses to go with his last Pokemon. Bayleaf, I choose you! Ash's final Mon takes to the field, ready to make its trainer proud. The reason Barry chose Heracross becomes clear as he calls for a Brick Break, as the Mon connects with the light screen, shattering it, but Ash counters with the Body Slam. The two connect, struggling for the more dominant move. Heracross is on the receiving end once more, being forced back. Barry then chooses to go big, calling for a Mega Horn. Heracross speeds down the battlefield, but Ash is ready for this, calling for a Vine Whip to ensnare Heracross. This binds the beetle as its horn is driven into the ground. Ash then follows up with one final Body Slam to end this exchange. However, Barry is unfazed. He accomplished what he wanted in breaking the protective barrier. Ash chooses to recall Bayleaf. He knows he may need it for later. Barry then chooses that he needs to go with his ace in the hole and sends in his last Pokemon, Altaria. The Cloud Dragon takes to the air, ready for battle. Ash thinks he's got the perfect counter. Glalie, I choose you. It takes to the battlefield, still feeling the battle from earlier. The battle starts and Barry calls for a Dragon Dance. Altaria skates across the sky, Glalie giving chase with an Iron Head at the command of Ash. The Iron Head connects, knocking it from the sky, but Altaria recovers quickly at the command of its trainer. Barry follows up with another Dragon Dance, much to Ash's surprise. He wants to get in as much damage as possible, so he calls for an Ice Beam. Unfortunately, with the new speed that Altaria has gained, it's able to outpace the attack. This allows Altaria to get in close to Glalie, and in a flash, Barry ends the battle with the Flamethrower. Glalie is down, forcing Ash to recall it. Ash knows that things are bad. His one advantage he had is now gone. Turning to his starter, "Are you ready, buddy?" Pikachu nods, jumping back in. Barry knows he's in a good place. This battle is in his favor. The ref calls for the start, and Ash wastes no time calling for a quick attack. It's able to rush down the battlefield, getting close. Barry quickly calls for a sky attack in order to put some distance between the two. Pikachu won't let it get away, however, using an agile-style Iron Tail. The first one is used to launch Pikachu airborne. The second one cracks Altaria on the head, but this gives it little area to dodge the sky attack as Altaria connects with it. The mouse is sent into the field below as Barry calls for a follow-up Dragon Pulse. Pikachu stands up to watch the attack come barreling down on it. Ash calls for a Thunderbolt. The mouse charges the attack, but it's too late and the Dragon Pulse connects. Once the dust clears, Pikachu is still standing, but that was not good for it. If Ash doesn't think of something, then they will lose. Then he has an idea. He tells Pikachu to use an agile-style quick attack. Bolting around the battlefield, Barry is confused, calling for another Dragon Pulse, but Altaria is as confused as its trainer, unable to lock onto its target. Finally, Ash makes a call for Pikachu to mount the wall and use it to push off to catch Altaria. The mouse does so, locking on the cotton ball of the sky. This gives Altaria a chance that it needed to fire the Dragon Pulse, but Ash was ready for this, calling for a strong style Volt Tackle. Charging the electrical barrier around Pikachu, it protects it from the Dragon Pulse, allowing it to collide with Altaria at maximum power. An explosion erupts with both falling to the ground. The ref begins counting as the two Pokemon struggle to their feet. Pikachu is having the hardest time, as the recoil of the Volt Tackle shook it to its core, but it is able to stand back up at the count of 1, with Altaria unable to do so, being disqualified due to fainting. Wow, Barry says, I didn't think we would lose like that, as he recalls Altaria. Ash looks at Pikachu. It's breathing very hard. Walking out to retrieve it, Pikachu stops him. It wants this battle with the Pokemon they both know is coming. If not to win, then at least to give them a fighting chance. Ash understands, choosing to leave in his starter. With no other options, Barry sends in his final Pokemon, Empoleon. Things are at a crossroads. Barry knows it's all or nothing. Ash starts the battle by calling for an Iron Tail. Barry counters with a Drill Peck. The spinning penguin collides in the middle of the field, overpowering the mouse. The exchange sends Pikachu back. Barry tries to capitalize on this with the Flash Cannon. Ash, knowing he needs to make a move, orders another agile style Quick Attack. This allows Pikachu to dodge the Flash Cannon, making its way right under Empoleon. Ash tells Pikachu to dump everything it has into a strong style Volt Tackle. Empoleon lights up in electricity, but Pikachu can't hold it and faints from the strain of the strong style, ending this battle in the process. Wow, I got lucky, Barry thinks. If that would have lasted any longer, then Empoleon would have lost. Ash walks out to gather a starter. Don't worry, buddy, you did great. Just leave it to us. With Pikachu now safely at his side, Ash sends back in his final Pokemon. Bayleaf, I choose you. Ash's final hope takes to the field as we enter the final stretch of this match. Barry, you've been a great opponent, Ash yells. Thanks, he responds. It's a shame that it has to end here, but I will be advancing to the next round, Ash. Not if we have anything to say about it. Right, Bayleaf? The match starts with Barry calling for a Drill Peck. Ash tells Bayleaf to wait. They need to make every move count. As Empoleon nears, Ash tells it to use Vine Whip to jump, then use the force of its fall to increase the power of a Body Slam. This connects, forcing Empoleon to the ground. Barry can't understand it. That should have been a clean hit. Then it hits him. Though Pikachu was unable to end the battle, it was able to set up Bayleaf. Now Empoleon is dealing with the paralysis. This isn't good, Barry thinks, but it seems Ash hasn't seen it, so he may be able to use it to his advantage. Empoleon picks itself back up, returning to its side of the field at Barry's command. They need to be defensive. Barry then orders a Hydro Pump, but Vine Whip is able to help Bayleaf dodge. This frustrates Barry. Then they take a look at Empoleon. Breathing hard, it's at its limit. Then something happens that Barry has never seen before. Empoleon starts glowing with the blue aura. Is that... Congrats, Ash says. It looks like Torrent has activated. Empoleon is responding to your feelings. Barry, with tears in his eyes, asks if that's true. Empoleon nods, looking back at its trainer. They know that this next exchange will be the end of the battle. Wanting to hold nothing back, Barry tells his starter to use its most powerful move, Hydro Cannon. Empoleon puts everything it has into the final move. Ash, knowing that Bayleaf may not be able to withstand this, has no choice. He tells Bayleaf to rush in as the move charges. Empoleon sees this, as does Barry. He tells it to stand strong. Then the time comes. Fire, Barry yells. Bayleaf is in point-blank range, but this is what Ash wanted, as he tells Bayleaf to use Vine Whip to hold Empoleon's head to the sky. This turns into a struggle of who has more raw power. All the while, the Hydro Cannon is losing power. With one last call, Barry yells Empoleon. It manages to break Bayleaf's hold, firing the attack. Ash, down to the last move, tells Bayleaf, it's time, leave Storm! A monsoon of leaves, fire, cutting through the Hydro Cannon, connecting with Empoleon and sending it back into the stadium wall, ending the battle as it falls at the last minute of the attack. Barry can't believe it. He lost. Ash celebrates with Bayleaf. I knew you could do it, he says, as he rubs it on the head. Then Ash notices Barry. He's silent. No energy, not his normal self. Ash approaches him to say something, but Barry breaks his silence. Ash, since you beat me, then you have to win the whole thing, or I'm going to fine you. Ash just smiles. You got it, he says. It's here that the screen above the stadium comes alive as the top 4 battle pairings are announced. What Barry sees chills him to his bones. That trainer, Barry shudders as Ash's next opponent has been revealed. And that, my friends, is where we're going to leave this part. And that's all we have for What If Ash Won the Sinnoh League Part 11. How'd you guys feel about this one? How did you feel about the battle with Wagner and the changes that I made? How do you feel about the restructuring I've done in the league to make Barry Ash's first top 8 opponent? And of course, are you guys excited for my version of the Tobias battle? Because I guarantee you, it's going to be different than the one that we got in canon. Let me know in the comments down below. And also, if you like the content that you see, please don't forget to drop a like and a subscribe. And follow me on my other platforms like Twitter or my Discord if you want to get to know other people that share the same mentalities that we do. And also, if you want to give just a little extra support, for $5 a month, you can get up to a week's early access to all of my What If videos if you join my Patreon. The link will be in the description below. But with all that being said, it's time to sign out the video the best way we know how, by thanking the sponsors, the patrons. Silver Heart Soul, Robert, Vegito Gaming 78, Andrew McCartney, Holosif, Julian Rodriguez, Ruben Watson, Lord Explosion Murder, Assassin 139, Flyer 943, Shadow Dragon, Tavern Landlord, K McKnight, Kevin Atran, Drax, True Volt, Adrian Carr, Dino King, Dalen Silva, Fox King, Dalion Petit, Warney Taylor, Plus Ultraman, Megar, Mike Logan, Team Valor, Kendall Green, Earth Dragon, John Larson, Alex Horsey, and Forbidden Super. Thank you all very much for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.